So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Kelsey. I am one of the members of our customer service team. A lot of you have probably spoken to me or Andrew or David, but we're always here to support you as you work through Voces. So I was just saying, I'm going to do sort of a quick example of assigning an activity, and we're going to take a look at the grading portal. If you have specific questions, put them in the chat. We will have someone answering them, or the daily survey link that Andrew just shared. I will have a slideshow available afterward, but so it's here. I probably will spend more time in my account than on the slideshow, but today we're going to learn how to assign an activity, how to set different parameters on our assignments, how students find those assignments, and how to grade those student submissions. So I'm going to go ahead. Can everyone see my screen, or can anyone not see my screen where it says una historia? Awesome, I'm seeing thumbs up, so I'm going to just jump right in. Now, when we assign an activity to our students, the first thing that I always like to point out is just the vocabulary of it. So when we're looking through the content of the book that we're working with, we have activities. So a lot of teachers will refer to these as assignments themselves, but when we're talking Voces platform, we call an assignment and we call an activity that we've assigned formally an assignment. So it's just one of those things that sometimes the vocabulary throws people off, but just know that those are activities for the purpose of this presentation, and assignments are things that are activities that we've set parameters on for our students. So we're going to start from the assignments icon here at the top. It's the paper with the star. That's going to open up our assignment portal, if you will. So this will see a couple of things. We'll see the options here to create a new assignment. We can change the view or even print our assignment list. The students also have the option to switch to a calendar view or to print their assignments as well. Now, just the anatomy a little bit of the assignment portal, we have class visibility here, which is actually going to hide or show assignments for that specific class. So right now I only have assignments for this one class, but if I uncheck this box, it's going to hide those. So this is really helpful if you have, 4 or 5 periods that are all working on the same assignments. It will hide those for the other classes if you uncheck those boxes there. You'll also notice a couple, you see folders and assignments. So you can see I have one folder and then assignments without a folder. Again, students will also see assignments grouped into folders if you choose to organize that way. I do recommend using folders just to keep yourself and your students a little bit more organized. There are also some options within that folder. For example, if I put my assignments into a folder, I can turn on this option here, this little numbered list, which requires that the activities or the assignments are done in that order. See, I even go back and forth between activity and assignment. I try to keep it straight, but so that's just one of the benefits. You can also bulk edit assignments that are in a folder and then adjust the name of the folder, some other little minor things there. So all of that to say that as we go through the assignment creation process, we'll either be able to create a new folder, or we can add assignments to an existing folder. One other thing to note that I'm not going to get too detailed with is if you're using an LMS, a learning management system like Google Classroom, Schoology, Canvas, any of those programs that link with Voces, when you use a folder, you can sync just that folder to the LMS, which keeps things a little bit cleaner there. That's something though, if you want a little bit more one-on-one attention, definitely schedule a walkthrough with us, schedule a support meeting. We'll be able to walk you through syncing those folders and the assignments, all that good stuff. But for today, just because we do only have 30 minutes, I want to try to not go into too much detail on the LMS. Now, to create an assignment or to assign an activity to our students, we'll just start with new assignment or assignments, because we can assign more than one page. And this is going to open up the new assignment wizard. So a wizard is just something that's going to walk you through a process step by step. So as long as we follow each step of the new assignment wizard, we'll be able to successfully create the assignment. You'll see two options here, assign the current page or different pages. If I choose current, it's going to assign that page that I was on when I opened the assignment portal. If I choose different pages, then on the next step, we'll actually see the full curriculum opened up and we can choose multiple pages. So typically, if you're trying to assign a few things, or even if you're just you weren't on the page you want to assign, I recommend different pages. If you found an activity that you love and you want to assign it right then and there, I would use assign the current page. For this demonstration, I'm going to use different pages just to show everyone that functionality as well. So from here, you can see it opened up the entire table of contents. If I open, for example, Unit 2, maybe Historieta 1, I'm going to choose to assign the story itself, the activities that go along with it, and maybe the grammar note. So you can see as I click those, they turn green. So that means they're selected and they'll be assigned on the next step. This little yellow icon with the lightning bolt tells us that activity is automatically graded. So that's just a nice little reference if you're looking for something that the students can sort of do quickly or maybe do multiple times, then that auto-graded activity is a great place to start. Once we select the pages, we're going to scroll all the way to the bottom and click Next. Now we're going to choose our students to assign this to. I can choose either full class, you'll see it turns green, or I can choose specific students if I'm not linked to an LMS. So I am logged in with Google Classroom right now just to be able to show some of those options. When we're using an LMS, we cannot assign to specific students because that functionality has sort of been there in the past, but when you assign to specific students and sync to your LMS, then it's actually going to assign to all students in that class. If you do want to assign to just specific students, you can log in without using your LMS credentials. Just log in with your class ID and user ID and assign to your specific students that way. Again, we're just going to click Next. Like I said, it's walking us through each step. So as long as we keep hitting Next, we're going to be in great shape. Now we'll choose if we want to put this assignment into a folder. So I can either choose my existing folder, Workshop 2024, or create a whole new folder here. Create a new folder. It's just going to ask me for the name. So I'm just going to call this one Assignments and then click Next. Now I have the option to sync as a folder. So again, this will only show up if you are using an LMS. We'll be able to sync just the folder. So basically what that will do is it will assign as one assignment in the LMS. So you can see here it's saying there are 3 10-point assignments in this folder. Then in Google, it will create one 30-point assignment. If we sync individually, each of those will go over to Google or to your LMS as an individual assignment. So a lot of my teachers who use an LMS do prefer to sync the folder. It just, like I said, keeps things a little bit cleaner in the LMS, keeps things, especially in the assignment flow for the students, they see a little bit less, so it's a little less overwhelming. Once we have our choice here, we'll just go Next. And now we're setting our parameters. So these are the things that are a little bit more of a choice than the previous steps. The previous steps, we sort of have to choose something along the way. Here we have a little more flexibility on how we're setting up the assignment. When we get to this step, I always like to tell teachers to think about the goal of the assignment. So do we want students to be doing this for practice? Is it an assessment? Is it something we might go over in class and then redo? Those things will all sort of play a part in what parameters we want to set on the assignment. So we'll start with our start date. Available immediately, just what you'd think, the students will be able to start working on it right away. If I set a future start date, so maybe I know I'm going to be out one day next week and I'll have a sub, or maybe I just know I want the students to work on this next week. I can choose from the calendar here. Maybe I want the students to start on August 5th at 11 a.m. The time can be changed, everything can be changed with that, but it will tell you, you also have to have the due date be after the start date. So I'm gonna set that for August 5th at 11:55 p.m. Just gonna use the default time. But you can see that there's a lot of flexibility in when students can work on the assignment. Show assignment before it's available will let the students see that the assignment is coming up, but they won't be able to start working on it. So this is really good for assessments, quizzes. You know, you want them to prepare for it, but you don't want them to see the actual content of the activity until the assignment opens. Next is probably one of the more important things in terms of when students can work on an assignment is the due date. The hard deadline, that one's pretty self-explanatory, no submissions after the due date, but we do get some confusion between soft and open-ended. The soft deadline is the default, and it's the one that most teachers will use for most assignments. The soft deadline allows students to turn the assignment in late, so long as they have not already submitted it. The purpose of this is that this prevents students from completing the assignment before the due date, going over the answers in class, and then resubmitting after the due date, after we've gone over it together. But it does give that wiggle room for students who are maybe out for the day or, for any other reason. Open-ended is one I would recommend using on speaking or writing activities. You do want the students to turn it in on a specific date, but you're planning to provide feedback to the students, and then you want them to apply that feedback to the activity. So open-ended, the students can submit more than once after the due date. So those two, like I say, those two could get a little bit confused sometimes, but just think, do I want them to be able to change their responses after the due date and submit? Then I'll use open-ended. If I don't want them to be able to change their responses after the due date, I would use soft deadline. And then again, we're just going to go next to move on to the assignment parameters. This page can feel a little overwhelming, and I won't, just for time's sake, dig too far into each one. But this is where, again, we want to think about the purpose of the assignment. If it's practice, maybe I'll do a modified point value and set it to credit or no credit. So they either did it or they didn't do it. If it's an assessment, maybe I'll apply a submission limit of 1 or 2, however lenient we want to be with it. But if they're practicing and we want them to do it, until they get it right, then I would not apply a submission limit. So again, it just comes down to that goal of the activity. Prevent leaving is probably the most popular parameter. That's a tongue twister. But prevent leaving gives the students a warning the first time they leave the page, or we can even increase the warnings here to 4 or 5, but they'll get a warning. And then if they leave the page again, the work will be submitted to the teacher automatically. Timers, maximum and minimum, just restrict the amount of time students can work on an activity. A required passing percentage means the students will see that assignment marked as incomplete until they reach that score. This is another one that's really good for practice activities. So maybe we say it's incomplete until you get a 90%. And again, we want to think about the other parameters. If we apply a submission limit with that required percentage, students are going to get conflicting messages in the platform and they won't be able to attempt the activity again, but it'll still be marked as incomplete because they didn't reach that score. So anytime we're using require set percentage, I recommend no submission limit. But I also do recommend using clear on retake, which gives the students a blank assignment each time they attempt it. So it really, again, just comes down to what are we trying to assess with this activity or with this assignment. The final thing here is allow review. So the default is immediately after students submit, they can see which questions they got right and wrong and what their total score is. They won't see the right answers to any questions unless you check the box here to show the correct answers. We can also change that to after the due date. That's very popular with assessments and quizzes, so that no students can see their score until the due date has gone by. And then if we really want to control it manually, we can use teacher controlled. This is most popular for teachers that are giving the same assessment in multiple class periods. So you can open the review the next day with your first hour and then close it again so they can't go in the hallway or go to lunch and share those answers with each other. Again, the show correct answers, it's going to follow whatever rule we have set for allow review. One last time, we're going to click next, which is going to take us to review our details. It's just going to have a list of everything we selected. We can leave a note for our students. We'll go over this on Friday, whatever we want to tell them in addition to the parameters we've set around the assignment. Now this time we're going to click create assignment. It's going to take us back to the assignment portal, and you can see I now have that additional folder. I don't know why it didn't put the assignment in there though. Well, that is something, because it's future date. No, well, always something when I'm doing a demonstration, but I will have Chris look into that for me. He's usually very fast. I'm guessing it's something to do with my account being a little bit older, but we will address that, of course. So for now, we'll just look at the workshop 2024 assignments and just look at a couple of things really quickly, and then we'll jump right into grading. So once I've created an assignment, I can edit that assignment here. This will let me change any of the parameters we've set, and it will let me go down to my student-specific settings. So here I'll be able to edit maybe the student Jacob needs, it wasn't showing because I didn't have that class selected. Okay. Sorry, I'll go back. I think I figured out why it wasn't showing in that folder. But for example, Jacob maybe needs an additional attempt than everyone else. Maybe he has an IEP, or we just have, some sort of agreement, whatever it is. We can change the submission limit, the timer, we can change the required percentage for that student. So any of these details can be changed on a student-specific basis as well. All right. That should do it. There we go. So I didn't have this class selected to show assignments, which is why they weren't showing in the folder. One other thing I really want to show here is the view results option, but I am going to show it on one that I have results for. So we're going to go back to workshop 2024, and I'm going to click view results. This is going to show me who has completed and who hasn't completed the assignment. And then if I click on a student who has completed, I can reset that student activity result. So that will clear out their result, resetting the activity for them. Or I can change the due date. So the changing of the due date is most helpful for students who have not submitted yet, that maybe they were out of class that day. You need to give them, an extra day to do something. It's just a little bit easier than going in and fully editing the assignment. So just, again, that's under results, and then we just click on the name of a student, and we can change the due date for that student. All right, is there anything in the chat that we should address before jumping into grading, Andrew?
I don't think there's anything unanswered, but if you want to show an example of creating an assignment for multiple classes and then editing the assignment like start and due date for a second class, as if there were multiple periods that you wanted on different days. That was something that Catherine asked about.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to make sure we have time to get into grading. So Catherine, if I don't get back to do that, I will absolutely follow up with an email with a video that shows how to do that. And we'll make sure that that's shared with the slideshow as well, with the presentation. But I do want to make sure, that'll probably take about 5 minutes. So I want to jump into grading really quickly first, and then go there. Thank you, Andrew. So once a student submits an activity, then we would grade or review that activity. This isn't terribly complicated. Under the teachers panel, you'll see the grading portal, and you can see mine's lit up green because there are things there for me to grade. In the grading portal, there are 3 main areas. You can see them here on the left. We have requires grading, activity results, and gradebook. Requires grading is everything that needs to be graded by the teacher. So these are things that were submitted but have not been graded. or they are late. So any activity that's turned in late does land here. So that way, as the teacher, you see that it's late, you can take off half a point or whatever, your classroom policy may be. When I click on the name of a student, it's going to show me the suggested answers if there are any, and then the student answer. This one happens to be audio. So what I would do is just play the audio here, listen, and then be able to give the rubric score on this one. We'll see one where it's question by question, but on a rubric here, I would just click the box to give the student that score on that part of the rubric. Now, something I've seen teachers do with audio, because as you can see, there's a lot of audio clips from this student, is they might tell their students, I'm going to grade 3 of your audio clips. I'm going to pick 3 random ones, and that's what your grade is going to be based on. So that's just a little tip that I've seen some teachers do that helps sort of cut down on that workload for the audio activities. Then when I'm done grading, I just click save, and that's going to move that out of requires grading into activity results. Now, the other thing we have here is the option to clear the requires grading list. So I can either select to clear all or none, and then choose, 1 or 2 activities. This comes in handy if we are grading an activity as credit, no credit only, or we just kind of want to move everything out of requires grading and into our activity results. If I check mark all correct, it will mark all of the questions correct for each student for each of those activities. If I don't, it will remain ungraded. So it will be marked as everything is incorrect until it's graded. Awesome. Now I'm going to jump right into activity results. Activity results is where we see everything that has been graded, whether graded by myself, the teacher, or by the computer or by the system. So for example, if I open up, I'm going to select my classes here at the top. I can see this assignment icon next to pages that are assigned to my classes. So that just helps you narrow down fairly quickly what activities we need to grade or were submitted. I can see this student submitted on July 26th, and then clicking on that line is going to open up the student responses. This is another rubric activity, so I would click on the rubric to grade. Now, I believe it's this one. I'm just looking for the one. There we go. So this one is an activity where I have 2 student submissions, and this is a points graded activity rather than rubric. So we can see here, again, we have the question, the suggested answers, and then the student answer. Over to the right, I can click those red X's to mark them as green checks. Or if I click check all, it's kind of small there under marks, it's going to check all of the questions as correct. I can leave notes for each question here on the page, or if I scroll down, I can leave page notes or even audio feedback for the students. We have the option to adjust down or up with the points. And so that's just another way that you can really have control of the grading itself. Again, when I'm done, I would just hit save, and that's going to save that score for that student. Another feature here I usually like to point out is the option to grade by question. So what this does is instead of sorting by student, it's sorted by question. So we can see here for question 1, I can see the student's name, what they answered, and then mark it correct or incorrect. And in particular with auto-graded activities, teachers like this because you can see really quickly how many students got a particular question wrong or right. So it's a good way to measure, did we all really struggle on this particular question? Just nice way to see it a little bit differently. Again, you can still leave notes, and you just can't leave a page note, but you can leave for the specific questions. We can reset the activity here as well. Reset all will reset it for all students showing. If I just click the student's name, I can reset for just that particular student. That's going to archive that response or that set of responses and then clear the activity for them to attempt it again. The grade book is the last section here. The grade book is really just where we run grade reports. So I would choose a unit or a chapter up here at the top. I would choose my classes and then just my whatever I want to include in the report. So I might say only show activities that I assigned to my students, or maybe hide anything that I have not graded yet. So maybe I just want to see those graded activities. Then I generate the report. It's going to pull up any of the assignments that were completed in that unit. It'll have the student listed and then the amount of points that they received for it. This is also the best place to sync those scores to your LMS. So when we click there, it's going to send the scores over. My Google Classroom isn't real, so it does say 0 out of 0, but in your case as a teacher, it would typically say, 10 out of 10 successful, or if you had an error, it would show here, and then it would alert you to that error on the spreadsheet as well. All right, I know I went very, very quickly through grading. If you do have questions you want to see demonstrated, put them into either the chat here and we'll make sure we address them, or go ahead and fill out the daily survey. And I will be at the session at 1 o'clock today to hopefully go over anything that we missed. Really quickly, I'm going to just go and show assigning to different classes and changing the parameters for each class. So I'm just going to choose, and I'm going to go through this part very, very, very quickly, but I'm going to choose 2 classes. No folder for that one. All right, so they're going to be in here, assignments without a folder. So the question was, now how do I change the time or the due date or the start date or really any parameter for different class periods? So now I've assigned this to all of these activities to 2 different classes. So maybe I want to change it for my 4th hour. So me personally, I would uncheck the other classes. Just I like to see things a little bit more cleanly, but that's totally optional. But then we would just find the assignment for that 4th hour class, edit the assignment here, and then I'd be able to change that due date, start date, any of those parameters that we set. So a lot of teachers will choose all of their classes at once, assign the activity with their default parameters, and then make those adjustments either for specific students or for different class periods. So I hope that helped, but like I said, definitely fill out the survey. If you still need a little bit more clarification, I'd be happy to send a little bit of a slower video a little bit later. Because we are unfortunately at our time. I had a feeling I was going to fill up the full amount of time. Let me just double check what's next. And in the meantime, are there any questions that I could answer either from the chat, or if there's anything, fairly quick or sort of general, I'd be happy to answer that right now.
We do have one just a minute ago from, I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, Rocio, about editing the rubric for the same activity.
Yes, you can absolutely edit the rubric for any activity. I do know that there is a Voces editor session tomorrow. So tomorrow at 9 a.m., David and Hannah are going to be showing the different ways you can use the Voces editor to edit things like rubrics, any of the content on the page. That one's it's not that it's a terribly time-consuming process, but showing it step by step would probably take a little bit more time than we have at the moment. But again, if you put it in the survey, I would be happy to send a specific video to you as well. But the short answer, yes, you can edit rubrics. You can edit anything you see.